Welcome to From Betrayal to Breakthrough. I'm Dr. Debbie Silber, and today's guest is Wendy Rose Williams. Wendy is a past life adventure guide. She helps people release energy that no longer serves them so they can lead a happier, healthier life filled with purpose. Examples of energy that don't serve us include pain and anxiety and depression. Wendy is a certified spiritual teacher and Reiki master, energy healer, as well as a hypnotherapist specializing in past life regression. She trained with Dr. Brian Weiss, Many Lives, Many Masters. Wendy is a published author who enjoys voicing her own audiobooks. So often when we've been betrayed, we feel like we're crazy and like we're alone. We're not. There's so much to unpack and heal from, and when we don't, we keep repeating these hard relationships until we get the message that we're worthy, deserving, we need stronger boundaries in place, or whatever the particular lesson is for us. My next guest, Wendy Rose Williams, had a few of those relationships and learned so much about boundaries, love, and responsibility in the process. You're going to love this conversation. Here's Wendy. Okay, everybody, we have Wendy Rose Williams with us today. And, we just spoke a little bit before I hit record, and we are in for a very powerful conversation. She's going to be talking about how do you break through from multiple betrayals. And she has a very interesting story to share. And of course, we're always interested in what we do with that story. So welcome, Wendy.
Well, thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, excited to have you chat with us today because, I always I try to get in the minds of my listeners and say, what is it that they would really appreciate learning? And for me, it's always, yes, we have these experiences, we have these traumas, but what do we do with them and how can it lead us to something better? But let's start with the trauma. Let's start with the betrayal and the experience. Can you share your story?
Sure. Well, what occurred for me was I started dating my first boyfriend when I was 15, so high school. And you've just got that tender heart. It's that first relationship, and I'm a very romantic soul, so really cared about it a lot. And we were together for 5 years, so well into my college. I was getting ready to graduate from college. And what I discovered, unfortunately, along the way was he was having an affair with one of my closest female relatives. And that was just absolutely devastating. And looking back on it, I just wish I had taken better care of myself, and I wish I had ended the relationship when I discovered that fact. But I didn't. And I think that really cost me a lot. I think that cost me a lot in self-confidence and self-esteem. And I think it just was a very, very unhealthy relationship.
And I want to get to all that it led to, but let's just back up. So here you have this relationship, and then your boyfriend has an affair with a close relative of yours.
Mm-hmm.
How did you manage that? Because that's, it's like a double betrayal.
Exactly. Because it was the two people that were so close to me, and it really was a double betrayal. And it just, what happened was I started to suspect something was wrong, and that it was pretty unthinkable to consider. So it took a while to wrap my head around, but I kept seeing more and more odd signs of what was going on. So I spoke with him first and separately, and he at first denied it, and then tried to kind of trivialize it, and say that it was not that big a deal, and that he was sorry and let's just move on, type of thing. And that really was not sufficient. Again, I was not standing up for me in an appropriate way. And when I confronted the other individual, she completely just deflected it. No apology, wouldn't take any responsibility, and just said, no big deal, go find yourself a new guy.
Wow. So
And
what did you do with that information? Because here's the, we
I just
have that
shut
in,
down.
yeah, I was going to say we are intuitively we know that just does not feel right. That doesn't sit right. I
Yeah.
don't, and
Yeah.
we're supposed to just
Really.
move on and just be like okay with that, which is
Right,
hard to do.
exactly. So just really, I really, really shut down, and I became very physically ill as a
Yeah.
result, and was in bed for several months. And here I am in my, senior year of high school, and this is supposed to be a wonderful time. And I also was doing both my senior year in high school and my first year in college. So
Mm.
this really heavy academic load, and so looking forward to going away to college, and just so expecting it to be this really fantastic year in so many ways, with that culmination of high school. And instead, this is the mess I was in.
And it's so common to experience physical, mental, and emotional symptoms with betrayal. I mean, so much so that one of the three discoveries in my study was that there is this collection of symptoms now known as post-betrayal syndrome. What were
Mhm.
some of the symptoms that you had, the physical, mental, and emotional symptoms?
I just felt very alone. I felt ashamed. I felt embarrassed. I felt not enough.
Hmm.
I felt crazy at times because I really knew that the affair was continuing, yet they both were at the point of denying it.
Hmm.
And I didn't know what to do with it. In
Okay.
hindsight, again, I was only 17 years old.
Right.
In hindsight, what I should have done was to have just completely ended the relationship and contact with him,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
also to have considered doing so with that female relative. I
Yeah.
think that would have been the healthiest for me. I also should have sought counseling,
Hmm.
and that just didn't even enter my mind. This was 1979.
Right.
There
We
was
get,
not nearly as much,
yeah.
wonderful counseling and healing available. So yeah, I just internalized it.
You internalize it, which is so
Yeah.
common. And what about some physical symptoms? Do you remember some physical symptoms
The
that you had?
physical symptoms were just feeling kicked in the gut.
Oh, that's the one.
It just that was the biggest. I mean, yes, the broken heart, but I more felt it in my stomach, in my gut. The betrayal really sat there
Hmm.
in me, just very heavily, and just that weight on your shoulders of
Hmm.
things not being right and not knowing how to resolve it.
Yeah. So here you are, you're 17, you know this isn't right. Your body's
Mhm.
telling you it's not right. And you're sort of caught up in this web of, but I trusted these people, and here they are, uh, denying and deflecting and
Mhm.
everything else. How
Mhm.
did you move through it? What did you do?
I moved through it in the best way I could, was to just concentrate on focusing on college. Did my best to keep my grades up through high school, and as I said, I had missed literally several months of school because I was so sick in bed with mono, and it
Mhm.
was just a really severe case of exhaustion and
Yeah.
mono, and taking steroids and just not feeling well. So just kept kind of putting one foot in front of the other, and it's like, okay, well, just going to focus on going to college. But again, I didn't break the relationship off. I went to college locally.
Mhm.
So in a way, it's a shame that I didn't go out of state.
And
But
yeah, and this is so common. I mean, here's where so the mind and the body are responding, and your emotions are letting you know something is clearly not right. The body is saying, okay, you know what? By the time it manifests physically, there's a lot going on mentally and emotionally, and
yes.
it hits the weakest link. And for you, it was mono,
Mhm.
and that's it. And then your immune system just takes a nosedive completely. So
Mhm.
you're less resistant to things that you'd normally be more resistant to, and you're in the relationship, so it's not like you're not completely you're still tangled in this
Yes.
web of destruction here, um, but you were still moving forward with school and doing what you had to do. At what point did you start feeling better, or sort of making different
It
decisions,
took
or
It took about a year to
Mhm.
physically feel better because, as I said, I started college. Here I am, a 17-year-old, early entry and just this really heavy academic load.
Mhm.
So it just was a big adjustment to college. And I lived at home the first year, which was very unpleasant.
Mhm.
And then by the next year, made the decision, I just don't care what it's going to cost and how much, that there's going to be some debt run up. I need to get out of this house,
Okay. Okay.
and just make a change to make a cleaner break with my life to more start over. So started kind of disentangling there. And I did feel a lot better once I moved into the college housing. And I did that for 2 years, and then I moved on and got a first apartment with some other students because I went on straight on to my master's. So
So
that
what was
really,
the yeah, what was the difference you noticed when you moved? Because very often it does take that physical distance to create that space, enough of a space that we can start to heal. Did you notice a difference in how
I
you?
did. I started to feel more free. I started to
Mhm.
feel more like myself again. I started to feel like a weight coming off my
Mhm.
shoulders.
Mhm.
I just started to feel like my stomach was starting to unclench, and
Mhm.
was making a lot of friends in college and having good experiences and good successes there. Found a new part-time job that really suited me and was a great blessing for a couple of years of college.
Yeah.
And so things started to go on an uptick. And that over time gave me, the strength to say, gosh, I deserve better than this.
Mhm.
This just really not healthy, not happy relationship. It's not going to change.
Mhm.
He's not going to change. The other person's not going to change. The only
Mhm.
person that can change in this is me.
Mhm. Mhm.
And just started to, realize it's time to end this relationship with him. So I did.
Okay. So you ended the relationship. So you were in college, you ended the relationship, and
Mhm.
did that lead to more growth or healing for you?
That did. That was just a game changer, and just started to um, really enjoy life again. Started to date other men. Had a lot of fun with my housemates, and
Mhm.
just building a healthier, happier life for me.
And I hope that the listeners and viewers are right now saying to themselves, how do I feel based on this experience, based on this relationship that I'm in? And here you are explaining an unhealthy relationship and how you're
Mhm.
physically, mentally, and emotionally feeling. And then you end that unhealthy relationship and you see the difference in how you feel physically, mentally, and emotionally. So it is so obvious when we are not in a relationship that serves. And it is so obvious when we are. Of course, every relationship has its issues, but clearly this was one that was meant to teach you something valuable. And
Absolutely. I really feel it was meant to teach me to have much better
mm,
boundaries. And it took me a couple more relationships to learn that
yeah.
fully, but to put me first and to just really love and respect myself,
Mhm.
because that was not being exhibited by my behavior of staying in, those relationships.
And I love that you're bringing that up because I say this all the time. We keep getting opportunities in the name of the same type of relationships to teach us we are lovable, worthy, deserving. We do need stronger boundaries in place, whatever our particular lesson is. And until and unless we learn that, we will have experience after experience until we get the mother of all experiences. And we say, you know what, that's it. I'm never doing this again or that again. Lesson learned. We don't have to keep repeating it. So it sounds like you kept repeating a similar pattern because it was very familiar to you until those boundaries were in place and you learned that lesson. So what happened next?
What happened next was I married when I was 28 years old. And there were, certainly some fine qualities in my former husband because we divorced 15 years later.
Mhm.
But I had some. I went into it not. I went into it with concerns. I guess that's just the best way to express it.
Hmm.
And just that's not a great way to enter a marriage. I don't think that was very fair to him or to me. It kind of was like a settling type of
Yeah.
thing.
So you knew at the time, you felt that you were settling at the time, or you had
I did.
reservations?
I loved him. I saw the good qualities,
Mm,
but I also had a sense of settling.
mm,
But I really felt we were meant to marry. And it also was the time period. There was this absolutely dreadful article that came out. I can't remember if it was Time or Newsweek
hmm.
that been shown to be a flawed study. And it's also shown to have absolutely freaked out an entire generation of women. And it talked about women over 30 having a better chance of being um, kidnapped or by a terrorist, something like that, than of
Hmm.
getting married.
Oh my gosh.
And it was just absolutely ridiculous. But here it made the cover of Time or Newsweek on this flawed study. And I just was the age where I think a lot of us were kind of starting to panic of, oh my goodness, I really want to marry and have the happy marriage and have the children and just have all those good things in life. And it doesn't seem to be happening for me. All I do is go to friends' weddings. So
Mm.
that's where that feeling of a little bit of settling came in.
Wow. Okay. Isn't that interesting? So here it was this flawed study
It was
that,
mass media. Oh my goodness.
wow, that's so interesting. And so that sent the panic in,
Yes.
in you, and you said, okay, I better grab the first one that comes along. Or you loved him, but it wasn't the perfect fit for you. So what lessons did you learn from that experience?
I learned I cannot be in relationship with someone where there is not excellent communication because I'm an expressive,
Mm,
and that's something that I really crave and need in relationship. And he was very high IQ, but very introverted, very just, software engineer, very just turned within, and
mm,
just did not want that much quality time together,
yeah, yeah.
which is my primary love language.
Right. And isn't it amazing? I really feel like the more I learn about all of this, that as you enter into a relationship, past a few dates and you're getting a little bit serious, whatever it is, everybody should either know everybody's love language, take a disc assessment, some sort of, we do this with companies, the assessment to see what role someone is best placed in. And it's almost like, why don't we do that in relationships? We really should,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah,
To
I
see who's
hadn't
a,
discovered Gary Chapman's five love languages until after we divorced. And
Mhm.
I really wished I had found it during the marriage because he spoke gifts. That to him, giving gifts was just what he felt should make me feel loved. And that is my absolute dead last place. I just really loved the quality time together because of the communication and the expression. And I really appreciated the acts of service, and that just was not on his radar. I appreciated the affection, and we were really, really backwards. And
Mhm.
here I wasn't serving this poor man well either, because he was feeling like, "Where's the gifts? Where's the
Right.
cards? Where's the words of affirmation?" But
Yeah.
because those were dead last for me, I'm trying to get him to speak my language, and he's trying to get me to speak his. But we don't know what the disconnect is.
Yeah. And for those who aren't familiar with the book, it's Gary Chapman's The Five Love Languages. It's just a brilliant book.
It
So,
is.
yeah, I'm going to make sure I add a link to that in the show notes. Okay. So then what happened next? So you got out of that relationship, you got out of that
Yes.
marriage.
So we divorced, and I really went within in a great, healthy way. I had two young children. Our daughters were only 6 and 8. And we worked, I'm very proud of my former husband and I because we said we're going to be peaceful.
Mm,
We are going to be just the best co-parents we can be so that the kids don't take it on the chops.
mhm,
So we just worked really, really hard to keep as many things the same for them as possible and went through a lot of work to make sure that that happened and that they weren't too discombobulated by living in
mhm,
two households.
mm,
So we just were really, really careful with that. And I think
Which
he
is
and
so
I,
wonderful because the kids take the hit so often.
exactly, exactly. So I think we both really grew up and really just, stepped to the plate there in our 40s
Mhm.
of making it be as good as it could be for them. And I really reinvented my career. I moved into a new position, a new job at a new company because I got laid off right as I was going through divorce. I was literally purchasing a new home for the first time after the divorce and got laid off on that exact day.
Oh, wow.
So
Why
that
not,
was
right?
that was interesting. It's like,
Yeah.
well, but if you're going to have that perfect storm, it's the perfect place to get out of that that victim or martyr or depressed place that we can fall into, and just get out of that, why is this happening to me,
Hmm.
and shifting it to, why is this happening for me?
And that change, that switch
that
alone is
that changes
gigantic.
everything.
And it's also the why is this happening to me? I believe so many people stay there for life, and they just
Correct.
solidify themselves in that place. That becomes their identity. And we never want to be without an identity, so we just stay there, and that's just the way it is. How did you make that shift? Because I find
I
it's probably in my community one of the hardest places to leave, that place
Mhm.
of your victim story and all the small self benefits you get from being there, to saying, even though I'm getting all these benefits and the story and everything that
Mhm.
goes along with it, the sympathy and everything, there's something so much better for me if I let that go. It's a huge
Absolutely.
distinction. So how did you do that?
I made that shift because it's shirking responsibility. It's not being responsible for your life and your own
Mm,
happiness, because that's
mm.
got to come from within you. Jerry McGuire had it dead wrong. You do not complete me. There's no one that completes
That
me.
makes me crazy. I say that all the time. I mean, what is that? You're just a half, and best case scenario, you meet up with someone that makes you whole. Well, what happens if something goes wrong? You're a
Exactly,
half again? I
exactly.
don't
So
subscribe to
that
that either.
that strength has got to come from within. So what happened was, it was about 6 years after my divorce, and I had at that point had built a new home. The career was going well. The kids were now 12 and 14, and just doing really well. And it was at the point where it's like, okay, I am ready to meet a nice guy. So, how in the world does someone do that? So, I asked younger girlfriends, because they're a great source for that. And because I hadn't been on a date in 25 years, what did I know? And I asked girlfriends, and they said, "Oh, you need to go on match.com." And I'm like, "What's match.com?" So, friends helped me put together a profile, and I met an amazing man. And it absolutely shifted my world and allowed me to start to move into that place of power through the experiences that he and I had, because I woke up spiritually. I was not expecting that, and I just was not on my radar. And what I discovered was, he just had what I would refer to as the soul contract to wake me up.
Hmm. Hmm.
And we discovered many, many lives together. And through sorting all that out, I also discovered he had what I would consider the soul contract to break my heart repeatedly until I stood in my power fully without abusing it. And that's where finally I started to really do the work about 10 years ago, when he and I met.
Yes, and I want to back up a little bit, because
Of
people may
course.
be thinking,
What
what the
does all
heck
that
is
mean?
a soul contract, and what are you talking about, and why
Of
on earth would you be
course.
with
Let's
someone like
unpack
that?
that, please.
Yeah, and here's the thing, and I would love your definition of it too. But what I've learned and experienced myself is, everybody comes into our lives for a specific reason. And you may
Yes.
have heard, they come in for a season, or a reason, or a lifetime, right? And it's these opportunities that we have through these relationships to learn a powerful lesson we're meant to learn.
Mhm.
And when we don't realize that, we can look at these people and say, am I just the poster child for abuse or betrayal or whatever the reason is? But they're coming into, and I remember learning about this through, I loved how he put it. It was, oh my, Colin Tipping. And it was, oh, what was his book? Oh my goodness. It was something about forgiveness, Radical Forgiveness.
Okay.
It's a beautiful book. And he's explaining how these people that we would normally be so angry at because they do things that are hurtful, harmful, hateful, but they're doing it for our benefit. So we learn all the lessons we need to learn. And the way he expressed it was just magnificent. But the soul contract, because I know when I had a soul contract done, I thought that was the craziest thing ever. And I just recommend that everybody just have an open mind, because this stuff can sound woo-woo-ish, but just consider, what if it's true? Because I know I was just like you. So whoever is listening to this saying that just sounds full-blown crazy. But when you are willing, and willingness is always the biggest word I use. Willingness can take you into a million different wonderful places. When you're willing to consider, just because I don't understand something, what if it is true? What if there's just more to learn? Just because I don't see it doesn't mean it's not true. I know that has helped me in countless ways. So let's go with let's start with the soul contract idea. And when you say this was a soul contract, and how did you
Sure.
know that? And how did you believe that?
What happened was, he mentioned in his dating profile that he was very interested in meeting a woman on a spiritual path, particularly someone interested in a, quote, LBL. So I Googled it because I'm like, oh my goodness, I have to make sure this isn't some weird drug reference.
Yeah, what is LBL?
Exactly. It stands for Life Between Lives, which is Dr. Michael Newton Journey of Souls.
Huh.
It is a 4-hour spiritual regression where you're in this lovely, relaxed state, doing a past life regression that actually takes you back to home, back to the light, back to heaven, whatever your belief system is, nirvana, whatever your belief is, but you don't have a body, and you're there as an eternal soul, and you're able to start to discover, why am I really here? What's my life purpose? What am I here to learn?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you look at those, quote, bad relationships or painful relationships, if you're smart enough to look and go, oh my goodness, there's been several like this. I thought they were going to be different, but there's really the same thing showing up. Now I have to question, what's the common denominator? Well, I'm the only common denominator through it. So what do I need to learn?
Mm-hmm.
And what does my soul want to know?
Mm-hmm.
And, how am I going to learn it in the most beneficial way?
Mm-hmm.
I just believe a soul contract is an agreement. It's an agreement that you make with someone, because he and I, the minute we met, so he introduces me to Journey of Souls, and then through trying to sync up schedules to meet for the first time to have lunch, I had enough time to read the book. And the reason he had put that reference in was he was getting ready to go for his own second Life Between Lives session. So that's why that was really on his radar. But the moment I read that book, and what it is in Journey of Souls, Dr. Newton describes over his 30 plus year career, the most interesting past life regression sessions and Life Between Lives sessions that he facilitated as a therapist. And he was flabbergasted because he'd never planned to do past life regression. He thought it was woo-woo and weird, but a patient spontaneously went there when he asked her to go back to the source of her loneliness and her depression, because they just hadn't been able to solve it. And she went all the way back home to where she was as a soul. And she said, oh my goodness, I incarnated this lifetime and I don't have any of my friends here. I don't have any of my soul family here. I'm feeling really lonely and I just don't know what to do. But as they explored it, she said, oh my gosh, I made that choice. I'm not a victim. This isn't happening to me. I did that to learn how to be more independent and more resilient. and
Mm.
how to make new friends and new relationships. So that shifted it for her. And she did not have the issue anymore because they'd gone back to the source of it, to that lifetime of origin, and understood why.
Yeah, it's all about learning and
So
growth. So then what happened? What did you
So what happened was he and I knew, I mean, the minute we read each other's profiles, before we even met, because it took us about 3 weeks to meet, to sync schedules, because he was traveling, I was busy, whatever, real life's going on.
Mhm.
But we both kept, emailing or texting or phoning before we met, saying, where do I know you from?
Mm.
Because we were trying to figure it out. But when we met in person, I just looked in his eyes and he looked in mine, and it's like, we know each other from a really, really long time ago.
Mm.
And it just started to break down my barriers. Because if you had asked me in 2010, do you believe in reincarnation and past lives? Do you believe in soul contracts? I would have said, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
I would have had zero frame of reference. I would have said, hey, I'm an MBA.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I just don't know what you're talking about. What language is this?
Right. And it's because it sounds so crazy until you consider the possibility, and then it can make sense for you.
Exactly.
So then you're in this relationship and
Yes.
you're learning a ton of lessons. And what happened?
We were together for a little over a year, a monogamous relationship, but he was not happy. I mean, there were many wonderful things that happened, a lot of things we learned together. It was, in some ways, it was the most delightful, just fantastic relationship I'd ever had, because the communication was so amazing,
Mm-hmm.
and we just had so much fun together. But there was also a lot of weirdness to it.
Mm-hmm.
Again, another not healthy relationship, because he was 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Mm-hmm.
And just, in my mind, it's committed. In my mind, but I'm trying to force what I want onto it, and it's just not suiting him. So he ended it at 13 months. Okay. Which just so broke my heart. But it was the biggest gift to me.
So
Absolutely the biggest gift.
So what was the lesson you learned from all of these experiences?
The lesson I learned from that was, do not give your heart away. Love yourself first. Take care of yourself first. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't deserve to be with a super selfish guy. Mm-hmm. Who just was not giving me enough. I would call it a crumbs from the table relationship. Mm-hmm. It was another food analogy here. He was trying to have his cake and eat it too. Mm-hmm. And I do appreciate his honesty that when he ended the relationship, which, by the way, he did via email. Lovely. It was just he just wanted to have his cake and eat it too, and just, have this great relationship with me that I think was really feeding his ego. But the flirting with other people right in front of my face, oh my gosh, was absolutely horrible. Yeah. And I called him out on it multiple times and said, that's disrespectful. Do not do that. That does not work for me. That really hurts my feelings. And it's just, no, don't do it. Right. And would not stop doing it. Yeah.
So then, you know what, there's so many things that I learned even from this conversation, which is we just keep repeating these different types of situations until, we learn we do need stronger boundaries in place. We are lovable. We are worthy, all of these wonderful lessons. So as we wrap up, what do you want to make sure everyone knows?
I want to make sure that women and men too, that everyone knows to be your own best friend. Because if I had found my voice and been able to counsel myself, like you would talk to your best friend, if they were describing this relationship to you, what would you say to them? Mm-hmm. Because friends were definitely expressing concern regarding this last relationship that I'm describing. And we're saying, oh my goodness, are you okay? What's going on? Because I'm seeing a lot of pluses, but I'm seeing some really big flags. Also of his not introducing me to family and friends was another big flag. And again, called him out on it, but just didn't get a change in behavior.
Yeah. So, and I always say too, if you do have children, it's such a great, if you're not sure what to do, you put your kids in that situation. What would you tell them? And it becomes so clear what we would say. And because with them we do anything. So why is it that we're so wonderful, so loving, so giving with our friends and with our kids, and we're not leaving much of that for ourselves? But a good
Exactly.
case to do just
We
that.
can just be too stingy with ourselves because we're too burned out. We're doing too much for other people. So we're not nurturing ourselves first. It's that analogy of do not serve other people from your teacup. Make sure you're really filling up your own teacup by taking care of yourself in wonderful ways every day, and serve them from the overflow. So that you're just not, just crunchy fried. So just really loving yourself first.
Yes.
And Lucille Ball said that. There's a famous quote where she said, basically said, love yourself first and everything else will fall into place.
Yeah. And she was right. She was right. So you know what? It's so wonderful that you shared your experiences and we saw the path. And of course, what everybody sees every time and everybody hears every time they listen or watch the show, we go from that place of having that experience, going through the physical, mental, and emotional pain that gets associated with it. We try to make sense of the senseless, but eventually we make meaning from it. And that's when we come out the other side. So Wendy, I want to thank you so much. Where do we go to learn more about you?
You can go to my website, which is my full name, wendyrosewilliams.com, and be happy to offer people a complimentary 15-minute phone appointment to get to know them a little bit better. And just want to conclude and say, I think we need to change our culture to learn that we're meant to rise in love, not fall in love. Because there's something about that concept of falling in love that implies giving away your power. And I think that's really, really an issue.
Oh, that's powerful. I love that. Okay. All right. You heard it, everybody. Wendy Williams sharing, the story of trauma to transformation, and she's living to tell about it. So that's wonderful. Wendy, thank you so much. And I know there are so many listeners who, they're saying, oh my gosh, that's me. But in that they can say, okay, well, Wendy pulled herself through, learned a tremendous amount of lessons, and I can too. So that's a wonderful gift that you gave the audience. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
As if the betrayal of someone you trusted wasn't hard enough to manage, when the betrayer has an affair with one of your close relatives, that's a whole other betrayal that needs to be healed too. It's all a lot to deal with, and that's why it's so common, almost impossible, to not have physical symptoms after a painful experience. Stay in touch with Wendy by going to wendyrosewilliams.com, and we'll have all of her information in the show notes at thepbtinstitute.com/podcast. Here's my biggest takeaway. I'm sure I've said this 10 times and it's worth repeating. The absolute worst thing to do after a relationship ends is to get into another one. The next relationship after one ends must be with yourself to see what needs attention, what needs healing, what beliefs need to be changed, what habits no longer serve, and so much more. When we rush into that new relationship, we can only create more of the same. So while temporarily there's that new relationship high, there's that inevitable low. Instead, use that time to give yourself what you truly need until you feel confident, healed, and strong. Then watch what happens. Like the show? Please subscribe, rate, and review. And of course, if you know of someone struggling to heal from a betrayal, be sure to tell them about the show. And if you haven't already, be sure to take the post-betrayal syndrome quiz, which you can find at thepbtinstitute.com/quiz. And have you checked out the PBT Institute membership community? Imagine everything you'd ever need to become your physical, mental, emotional best. Community, support, certified coaches and practitioners you could schedule time with, daily classes on all kinds of interesting topics, curated experts teaching advanced strategies in the areas of health, mindset, spirituality, personal development. Imagine the most friendly, welcoming, and supportive place to become your best. all online. Nothing like this exists, and I am so excited to welcome you. Go to thepbtinstitute.com/join to learn more. Thanks for listening. Can't wait to be with you next time, and here's to your breakthrough.